Well, now on this video, I want us to talk about 4 businesses to avoid as a beginner. And by the way, I've seen a lot of people, you have your savings, it has taken you time, you've actually sacrificed, you have some cash somewhere and you'd like to start a business. And just because the cash is enough, you go ahead and start the business without the prior knowledge of this, what I'm about to share with you. Then this goes south and then you start regretting. Now, here with me, if you're watching me for the first time, this is Good Joseph. And what exactly do? I major on finances, I major on investment, just like this one we are talking about today. And I also focus on things to do with businesses. Now, thank you. Go ahead and subscribe. And by the way, if you are a returning subscriber, thank you very much. Let's get on the business now. Here we are talking about 4 businesses to avoid if you are a beginner. A beginner, simply in this sense, it means that you do not have a lot of experience as far as the businesses are concerned. Okay. Number one, what I always tell people that they should avoid if you are a beginner as far as the businesses are concerned, always avoid those businesses that require a huge capital. We say capital intensive. Capital intensive businesses. We have 2 types of businesses. We have a capital intensive business and we have a labor intensive business. A capital intensive business is a business that requires a lot of money for you to start. For example, real estate, it requires a lot of money. But am I saying that you should avoid real estate? No. For that matter, then I'll tell you what you're supposed to do. Now, what happens now? Another thing when it comes to a capital intensive business, this is a lot of money. This is a lot of money being put at risk. This is a lot of money that you are putting it at risk. But remember, you are a beginner. You are an individual who do not have a lot of experience on his or her side. And then, therefore, putting a lot of money into that kind of a risk is not recommended unless you're operating with an expert who has already been in that particular business, or you have a mentor who is actually mentoring you in this particular business. This is why I usually tell people, if you are a beginner and you want to get yourself into a capital intensive business, first of all, go do something called apprenticeship. Okay, apprenticeship. What is apprenticeship? Apprenticeship is just being under the wing of somebody who is already successful in this particular business. On that apprenticeship is where now you learn about this business. You reduce the risk that might be involved by virtue of you not knowing about that particular engagement that you're getting yourself into that may require a lot of money. So when you go under the apprenticeship, for example, let me use a simple example. Let's say you want to start something like a pharmacy, okay? Let's say you want to start something like a pharmacy. In Kenya, we call them chemists. That's where they sell the medicine and what have you. Let's say you possess the qualifications as far as the legal qualifications are concerned and you want to start this particular business. And let's say maybe you want to start a pharmacy worth around, say, 1 million. That's around 10,000 USD. Now, what happens is that before you set up this particular business, by just knowing some things, one or two, it is good you go to somebody who is already operating this pharmacy successfully, probably the equal value as yours or bigger than yours. Then under their wings, not being employed, not necessarily that you are under the salary. You can even decide to go there for a whole month. Just check out on how he or she does the things. Who are the distributors? Who are the sellers? How do they negotiate? How do you sell? How do you make sure? How do you handle the expiry or the expired medicine and what have you? What are the legal requirements and what have you? How does he handle the customers, the after sale, the before sale services and what have you? So therefore, before getting yourself into a capital intensive engagement, I see a lot of people, they come from the employment, they have saved almost all their lives in the employment. Now they get into the capital intensive. Then the next minute, for example, I saw somebody who went ahead and built with the money that combined with whatever he has been saving plus the pension, he decided to get the money and get into the real estate. He did the wrong calculations. Here in Kenya, we have funny contractors who they will tell you, hey, you can finish that project with 20 million, only to realize the project required 27 million or 28 million. Now there you are, you have a project, is not finished, it requires 8 million, which you do not have, you don't even know where to start. Probably that project gonna stall for the next 10 years. If that money, perhaps if channel towards other soft investments like treasury bonds and treasury bills, that guy could have been eating the money since day one. But anyway, it is what it is. So by all means, if possible, first avoid these capital intensive businesses before you get your money into that if you are a beginner. And I've already explained to you what are the things to do so that you don't mess up the thing. So how about we go to the business number 2 that you should actually avoid if you are the beginner. I hope by now you've already liked the video. Go ahead and hit that like button. Make sure that you subscribe and leave a comment on the comment section. Now, the other business is what you call business that is putting your capital at risk. You know, capital at risk. Of course, any engagement will put your capital at risk. But here I'm talking about the magnitude of the risk, okay? Capital at risk. These are businesses that you find that they really don't assure you something called capital preservation. Capital preservation. Capital preservation. Okay, capital preservation, this means that assurance, sure, I'm investing this X amount of money to get the Y return, but at least I'm sure that this X amount of money, it is there with me and my capital is actually assured and preserved. Now, when we talk about capital at risk, of course, any engagement, any business, any investment, it comes its own fair share of its own risks, but the risk differs from one engagement to the other. For example, if someone decides to go and start, let's say, an importation business compared to real estate, those two are two businesses that are good, they have good returns. But now, if you were to check in terms of the risk of those two businesses are capital intensive. If you want to import something, let's say a container or two, it requires overseas. It requires you to have a huge chunk of cash at the beginning. If you want to get yourself into the real estate, again, it requires a huge chunk of cash. Let's say both of these two guys have 10 million. Both of them are subjecting their money to what we call different risk appetite. Why? Because the real estate, as much as being a capital intensive engagement, it has lower risk compared to what? The importation business, which tends to have a higher risks. What I'm saying is, at the beginning, please try to focus on getting into an engagement that has lower risk, that is not actually subjecting almost every cash that you have to an ultimate risk out there. And if you have to go to a riskier engagement or a business, then there is a certain formula that you can follow, of which, if you'd like me to take you through on that, you can always grab my number. That's my number there. Then I can be able to create you a very reliable formula that you're supposed to follow, such that just in case something happens, you'll always have what we call the protective layer or the soft landing. You know, there are people who get the money, go invest the cash, and once you invest the cash, you reach to a point whereby now things go south, you mess up the things, and you cannot even get back to where you were before. Have you ever heard of people saying, hey, I had X amount of money, I started this project, for example, I had a client from the US, he's a Kenyan, and then he started a dairy farming back at home. Of course, he ran the business based on the trust. He had invested a lot of money. It was around 1.2 million, around there. That's over 10,000 USD. Well, sure, that's a lot of money here in Kenya. May not be outside there, but it's quite of a huge cash here. The guy started a very nice dairy farming with a very, very, very high-end kettles and what have you. Then the way he thought the thing would be run there, I think the guy comes from the places where we have a lot of farmers in the US. So he wanted to, to export those ideas and that expertise. But the guys who he had trusted on that then were not the guys who would actually do or replicate that dream that guy had. So the entire 1.2 million just went into the down drain, and the guy, of course, that was so tough. So the thing is here is that before you put your money at risk as a beginner, make sure that you have calculated, you have yourself some emergency fund somewhere, you know, you have some cash in the reserves of the business, just in case anything happens in the business, you're not operating under the targeted, the returns or revenue, then you can always rely on the money that is actually on the reserves. So that is exactly how you go about it, okay? So avoid the business that actually comes with a high, capital risk tag, because that can actually wipe you clean. Well, I hope we are going together well. The third business that you should avoid if you are a beginner, avoid the business that requires an expertise to run, okay? You know, there are these businesses that requires a lot of expertise. Requires huge expertise to run. You know why? And I want you to listen to me here very carefully, because this is a very sensitive point. Why I'm telling you just kinda kind of overlook the businesses that require a lot of expertise to run, because you'll be like the student in that particular business, of which it's very dangerous. You actually become under the mercies of other people. I will give you an example of a lady who started a very good beauty parlor in one of the posh areas in here in Kenya. And what happens, she just had the money. She was just a mere investor. She didn't have any background as far as the beauty is concerned. She was actually working with NGOs and what have you. So she ended up starting a very nice high-end beauty parlor. She knew nothing about nails, about whatever, nothing. Then once she started that particular business, and of course that requires expertise, somebody who is very good at that. And then the mistake she made is that she let the employees of her know that she doesn't know anything about the business. And what do you think will happen in that particular point? The guy will just twist you the way they want. You find that she has already arrived at the job, clients have already arrived there, but nobody is showing up in time because, I mean, after all, our boss knows nothing about this particular business, so we're gonna do the way we want. So she had a very tough time. So she called me and asked me, Joseph, what do I do? I mean, this is a lot of money that I've put into this business. Where do I start? So the point is, when you're getting into an engagement that requires high or a lot of expertise to run, and you do not possess that particular expertise, it becomes a bit of a challenge. It is always good to make sure that you can be able to run that particular business, just in case everyone gets off the show and you are left on the stage to dance by yourself. So it is good to make sure that you done. Sure, I understand you can actually hire and all those, but what I always tell people, always delegate that what you understand. It's only that you want to have more time by your end so that you can become a good thinker on the way you can actually expand the business and what have you. But always delegate that what you understand. So first, starting with that what you understand, that's why if you go to any typical CEO, let's say they produce the flip-flops. The CEO knows everything about the process of producing the flip-flops. Well, he may not know the reagent A mixed with reagent B will give you this, but he'll tell you the reagent A and reagent B combined, actually that cost will go to say $10 or $3 or whichever the amount of pan it is. So first, it starts with you understanding the business, so that when you're sitting there at the top of the helm of the company as the CEO or as the founder or the entrepreneur and everything, you can zoom in to any segment, to any section, to any department, and you totally know how exactly it works. So if the adjustment were to be done, then you definitely know where to press and such kind of things. But if you get into a business whereby it requires a lot of expertise, you don't have the expertise. Again, you see, when it comes to lead requiring a lot of expertise, it means that you have to employ people who actually possess this expertise. And of course, that comes with a lot of what you call the operational costs. Kindly allow me to share the last one. And the last one is about where you are paid, or where you are paid after the consumption. Avoid the business where you are paid when the people or after the people have already consumed. You are paid, you are paid after consumption. You are paid after consumption. Do you know what happens here? Well, see, when you're starting a business, money or cash flow is an important part of the business, especially all the time, but especially when you're starting. Now, here you are selling products, and then after the people have consumed the product, that's when now they pay you. That means you'll have a problem with your cash flow. That means that even if you were to expand, then that will be not an option. I mean, you'll have a very tough time there. So the point is, always get yourself in a business whereby, if it is possible, you are paid fast. Like, you always do what we call the POD. You are paid on delivery. If you can manage to do that, make sure your product's a point whereby you actually paid on delivery. When you're paid on delivery, it means that your business has vitamin M, which is money, which is required for you to actually what? For the functionality of the business. So when you are paid last, it happens to, there's a business here I told you guys, if you were to start it, be very careful. This is when you supply some stationery, some equipments or some products, let's say to some institutions, the supermarkets, hypermarkets, grocery stores and what have you. And then you realize that let's say you are to be paid in 2 weeks time. So the check hasn't come for the entire cash. Maybe say you are paid half. And again, because you signed a contract, you have to keep on supplying regardless of you being paid. Therefore, it means, remember, let's say you had supplied them, products worth 200,000 and you had consumed, or you need like 150,000 for you to supply product worth 200,000, and then instead of them paying you the 200,000 so that you can get your profit of 50k, and then you're remaining with the purchasing power of 150,000 to go back to the market so that you can supply them next time, they pay you a check of 100,000. First of all, you don't have the profit. Second, you don't have the purchasing power to go back to the market to purchase so that you can supply, so that you can adhere to the contract that you had signed. So what do you think will happen? You look for a place to borrow. So you borrow to an institution or from an institution that does not give you the leeway, just like these guys are not paying. If you see, if you can borrow from a place where you can pay them at any given time, just like you're being paid here, that's a different case. But now here you are being paid at any given time. Nobody cares about you being paid, but you have borrowed money from an institution which that you have to pay, and you have now you get yourself on a tight spot because you're borrowing here to supply here where you're not paid, and what have you. I've actually met a lot of companies and a lot of individuals who got themselves in such a mess. Anyway, I don't want to make this video a long one. Bet that to the end of that particular video, but of course not the least. That is it, guys. If you are a beginner, please avoid those 4 areas as far as the business are concerned. This is Good Joseph. In case you need my services, come on, grab that number. Let's talk business. For now, it's a goodbye. See you there.